Trade rumors are flying around the Pelicans, but let me be clear right now. Moving Trey Murphy, even for a so-called star package, would be a mistake. Not every trade is about value, and the worst thing this team could do right now is make itself worse. It's a Christmas episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with you on this Christmas Day. Happy holidays to you and yours. And your present is talk about trade rumors, which is always fun. People get excited about that, but I'm going to shoot a lot of this down. There are trade rumors flying around Trey Murphy III right now. I don't really buy much of it, and even if the Pelicans get an offer they can't refuse, they should actually just refuse it. And I'll tell you why in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. We'll look at Trey Murphy, we'll look at Herb Jones. Yes, we will also look at Zion Williamson, including the uniqueness of his contract and why that maybe means the Pelicans should or shouldn't trade him. We can kind of go either way. We got a lot to cover in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. It means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. You can also watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every weekday at 10:30 a.m. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, now the #1 sports podcast network. So let's get into the big rumor that I saw, and that is around Trey Murphy III. And this came from Jake Fisher. This was aggregated from Jake Fisher, and I could not actually find the original thing he posted. And so I don't know if this is something he actually said or if things people are just saying he said. And it was basically that the Pelicans would only consider trading Trey Murphy for a Desmond Bane type of package. Desmond Bane was 5 first-round picks, or 5 picks essentially, from the Orlando Magic in some capacity to the Memphis Grizzlies, along with Cole Anthony and another role player. I forget the exact details of the trade. It doesn't matter as much. It was like, for Desmond Bane, and I'm a big Desmond Bane fan, it was like, for Desmond Bane, that was a lot. And is it just an offer that the Memphis Grizzlies could not say no to? And Memphis was in a unique situation. They needed some flexibility because it just kind of felt like things weren't working for them. But in that trade, despite them getting a great return for Desmond Bane, I mean that, they made their team worse. This is a team that won 48 games last year. And right now, the Memphis Grizzlies are 14-16. They made themselves worse in that deal for Desmond Bane. Great. Maybe you won the trade, in a sense, in a vacuum, right? You got a bunch of stuff. You got more than Desmond Bane was worth. But your team's under 500 and doesn't look particularly great right now. So what's the point of this? You know, I've talked a lot about value on the show. The longtime everydayers will kind of know some of what I'm going to say. I get the value proposition of trades. You know, the best time to trade a player is literally in the first year of their extension. Let's use an established guy, not a rookie. Someone not on a rookie deal. They sign the extension, and the best time to trade them is literally that first year of the extension. But if you're going to sign players to 4 or 5 year extensions, you know, why do that if you're just going to trade the player? And the answer is get something because they were going to leave anyway. But I don't know. They're under contract. You don't have to play them. At a certain point, basketball is not about spreadsheets and value and pure contracts and the salary cap. It's about winning games and putting a good product out there on the court for fans. So I don't particularly care if that kind of Godfather can't refuse offer comes through for Trey Murphy. In my opinion, there is no reason for the Pelicans to trade him right now. Great, you get a bunch of picks. Doesn't matter, you don't own your own. So even when you make yourself worse, you don't get the benefit of it. And you make another team better and you're getting their picks, so their picks get worse. None of this to me seems like an ideal way to trade Trey Murphy, at least during this season. You know, so I don't think they should trade him at all. Go and win games. We've seen the Smoothie King Center and what it looked like over that 5-game winning streak for New Orleans. People were having fun. I was talking to fans, everydayers of the show at the arena and other places when people stop me, and they're having fun now and they're enjoying this and people are happy. Don't get rid of that because you got some picks in the mid-20s. Now, this front office looks like they can draft. I'll give them that. So they can probably find some key players in that range. But that's also not where you get the majority of all NBA players, all-star players. They're in the top 5 of the draft, top 10, certainly within the lottery, but usually in the top 5. That's where those difference-making players predominantly are. There's exceptions, of course. But a pick in the 25th overall pick isn't going to be one of those guys, most likely. So you don't need to move a guy that is a difference-making player in Trey Murphy for a chance to draft a difference-making player. And when you look at the fit around Derik Queen, Jeremiah Fears, and others, Trey Murphy III really fits. He has expanded his game. He's playing better defensively, I think, than we've seen from him before. He just flat out looks good, and he's a fan favorite. You know, he's averaging 20.6 points per game this season, 6.2 rebounds, and 3.6 assists, along with 1.7 steals. You know, he looks like a borderline number 1 guy at times on this squad. That's the type of player you need. He literally fits on every kind of team. When we talk about the difficulty of building around unique big men, Derik Queen, Zion Williamson, Trey's the type of guy that fits. Trey's not the type of guy that you're like, I don't know if it works. He works. Trey's the type of guy you would look to go and find. So you may as well keep Trey Murphy. You've got one at home, and you don't need to trade him here. I don't care if it's 6 first-round picks, 7 first-round picks. At a certain point, just have the players that you know are going to help you win and do good things and roll with that group. Memphis is a good example of maybe overthinking it. You won 48 games last year. Desmond Bane played in 68 or 69. Why get rid of that guy for a chance to maybe get another Desmond Bane? You might be like, oh, the age is the time. That doesn't matter. Just win games. 30-year-olds can help you win games, right? It's not like they hit a thing and it's like, okay, Trey Murphy's expired now. We're going to throw him out. Or a player, right? They don't need to overthink this. You know, the fact that Trey is in so many trade rumors shows his value around the league, and that probably means New Orleans should not just move him. Like the stuff with Jonathan Kuminga is, get out of here with that. That's not a thing. You know, I've seen the San Antonio Spurs linked, it's air quotes, with him. Portland Trailblazers linked, air quotes, with Trey Murphy, right? Like, every team wants a guy like Trey Murphy, so maybe you don't trade away Trey Murphy. And I don't actually think that this team is looking to do it. They have no incentive to make themselves worse. If you want to pick, you can also go and get one in the offseason. You can also trade Trey Murphy in the offseason where more teams can offer more things, thus driving up his value. By refusing to trade him at the trade deadline and holding out for that massive, massive offer, that's how you actually increase the offer and get, a trade offer and actually get that massive offer. We've seen some players traded for peanuts, it feels like. This team should not be doing anything like that. You know, if they were going to tank for this upcoming draft, which is good, yeah, you could trade away a Trey Murphy, but you're not tanking. The team has no incentive to do that. So don't actively make yourself worse. There's no point in having an NBA or NBA teams if everyone is just trying to maximize value for a player and trading them in the first year of extensions. You sign a guy like Trey Murphy because you want to build around a Trey Murphy kind of player. This is where I do think the league and kind of the value and picks and all that has jumped the shark a little bit. And I'm big on analytics and the value and all that. I think that's a really important thing for smart front offices. But it does cross a line, and this talk around Trey Murphy and all that definitely, I think, has. And that's also why I don't think this front office operates quite like that. They clearly don't factor maximum value. And I like Derik Queen. They just clearly don't think about maximum value here. And so when you look at this team and where they are and their pick, the best thing they can do is no trade. I'll tell you why that is. No trade at all, even if you're bad. Coming up next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. I'm going to sneeze first. Okay, coming up here next. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's that simple, fast, and it's available in 45 states: Louisiana, California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule because creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive, and you can choose from a huge range of stats: fantasy score, field goal attempts, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy here. And the early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. And the new stacks feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup. You can go more on a QB's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. Happy holidays again. I appreciate y'all being with me on this day. We're going to be here the whole week and everything for Locked On Pelicans. No break here. Same through the new year as well for y'all. Also, give Dylan Sanders some love for covering the show while I was out on the honeymoon and everything for a couple of weeks. I really appreciate him doing that and keeping the show going. It's been fun to come back, though, and see the team winning, doing well, and seeing the conversation around the Pelicans be a little bit different. For your second listen, Locked On Saints with host Ross Jackson, covering everything you want to know about the black and gold. Tyler Shook looking good. See QB1 for the foreseeable future. It seems like it. He's breaking down his play over at the Locked On Saints podcast. So I'm going to throw this idea out there, and I talked about this last week as well. The Pelicans should make no sort of big move at the NBA trade deadline. We're deep in trade season. December 15th was the official start of trade season, as something like 80 or 90, I think it's 90% of NBA players can now be traded. But the Pelicans should not get involved in this whatsoever. This team needs to see what they actually have under head coach James Borrego. The early returns that we're seeing now that Borrego has some practice time with the squad has been good. He has made a very good claim to be the next full-time, right? Not interim head coach of this team. They have no need to do it now unless they just want to kind of do it cheaply, which maybe they will. But they look like a different squad from earlier on in the year. And that raises a question. And this can be a dangerous question of what could have been. What could have been if you had Borrego from the start or not Willie Green from the start, because the team's play, just in terms of effort, preparedness, all that is night and day. What could have been? Maybe you wouldn't be this bad as you are. And that means you need to figure this team out a little bit, right? One of the things I think they need to be, but you've got to do it in a realistic way. You know, they could talk themselves into saying like, well, Borrego here is whatever, and we would have been so much better. So we're actually a good team and we believe in ourselves, and let's go make a big move at the trade deadline. Let's be buyers and go and do something. And I don't think this team is that good, right? Look, they played a good team against the Cavaliers and got smashed. You've been down 25 to the Houston Rockets. You were down 11 to the Dallas Mavericks. Good teams aren't going to get in those positions all the time. And the Pelicans still, despite coming back in 2 of those, are in that spot to begin with. Good teams don't really do that, right? And so I think this team needs to be somewhat realistic with where they are. Realize they are not buyers. They are not a solid playoff team, even if they had Borrego from the start. They need to figure some things out more and see who are long-term pieces, who are not. And so that's why I said it's a bit of a dangerous question. The what if we could have been good. I don't know if this team would have been good. You know, I had their ceiling pegged at the play-in tournament to begin with. And it's very clear to me, at least, that even if everything kind of went right, they were maybe at that level, but maybe below that level. Certainly not above it. So you don't go from a play-in tournament team to being a top 4 seed with just one acquisition that depending on who it is, but like a realistic acquisition for New Orleans wouldn't have made that kind of leap, that jump for them. So they need to kind of know that. But at the same time here, there's no point in just dumping guys to dump guys. All of these players conceivably could be back on the team next season. So you don't need to get rid of anybody right now. I think there's a lot of trade interest around a Sadiq Bey, a Jose Alvarado right now, but I like how they've been playing. Sadiq Bey has been absolutely outstanding for New Orleans. Maybe you want that guy on the team next year. You don't need to trade him for that reason. So you don't need to get, I don't think Sadiq Bey gets you a first round pick. So don't trade him for a second round. You can just keep him and see how this team develops and see exactly who Sadiq Bey is and how he fits on this team long term. Keeping good players on this squad and not trying to kind of bottom out and just get what you can for them is important for the development of guys like Derik Queen and Jeremiah Fears too. Derik Queen can't have assists if guys don't make shots because you have a bunch of scrubs on the team because you traded all the good players away. Same for Jeremiah Fears. If you don't have shooters around him or good players, he's very easy to defend because they're just going to throw two at him and take away his driving ability. That stunts their growth to a degree. Let these guys kind of work in space, make their life easier rather than, just having them be terrible. It's like with a quarterback, if you have a bad offensive line and they're just getting sacked, you have a problem. The older Carr brother, I'm blanking on it, David Carr, right, was just turned into nothing because he was getting sacked the whole time. You don't know if he was going to be good or not and just never developed. That's why you see some of these QBs change teams. They go to a better run organization. They look decent. Daniel Jones with the Colts, right? Could throw some NFL talk in there before the injury. So I think about that with these guys. You could bottom out and get value and get picks, sure. But do you make your rookies, your two core players going forward worse? And the answer to that is probably yes. What does that do for them long term? You also need to try and capture this fan base here. And winning definitely has done it. It was rocky in the Smoothie King Center against the Rockets, against the Dallas Mavericks in those comeback wins. I had a friend who doesn't go to basketball games, went to the game against the Mavericks, and he was like, this was a lot of fun. You want to capture those kind of people, get them kind of interested in this. The best thing you can have in building for the future, your fan base, is a young player. Everyone wants to get in on the ground floor of something, feel like they were there first, right? You hear with bands all the time. I was a fan of them before they were popular. Everyone loves to say that. It makes you feel like you discovered something. It feels like you've been part of the journey then too when it reaches its crescendo and goes on the upswing. Same thing with NBA players and teams. People are going to be like, no, I was watching Jeremiah Fears his rookie year. I was watching Derik Queen his rookie year. You have these two guys here. If you're winning games, it's tougher to get people to buy into that when the team's bad. Well, they had two rookies, but they won 20 games last year, so who cares? Very much a thing. But if you can win some games and have rookies and show some promise like that, that's the win-win for this team. And so there's no need for them to bottom out. This is a weird benefit of not owning your first round pick next year. There's no reason to be bad. There's a reason to be competitive and try and win games without making moves that try and put you over the top. Just go and try and win. Don't shut guys down. Play your good players all together. And you kind of have a stress-free way for them to go out and do things. I'd rather have the pick too, or at least have that pick protected. But in a weird way, frees you up to just go try and be competitive and play your most competitive players and not shut guys down late in the season. And I like that. This will give the team a ton of data on who to keep, who not to keep, what lineups work, what lineups won't, because you're playing those guys in February, March, and April when you might not be otherwise. So just don't make any move that makes this team worse so that we can understand exactly what this team is so that the front office can make the correct decisions going forward. One of the issues under David Griffin was they just never had enough data because guys were hurt or not playing or they were tanking or whatever. Here you have an opportunity to get the data you need. Go and do it. Don't make big changes here and figure out your path forward. So coming up next, that also means no trade right now for Zion Williamson. I want to talk about that. That's coming up here next. And I've been a proponent of trading Zion. Not during the season. I'll explain why. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by DoorDash. The season is heating up, and DoorDash is a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. So whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. And with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights when your team stresses you out. The Pelicans certainly do that. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need dessert now. And when those late night interviews hit, you suddenly need chips at midnight because you're celebrating a late night Pelicans victory. DoorDash is built exactly for that. So from tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. Also consider joining the Everydayer Club. Gets you access to ad-free audio for Locked On Pelicans compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You're also going to get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for Locked On Pelicans listeners and just the NBA as a whole. It's a great way to hang out with other Locked On fans, NBA fans as well. You can find the link in the notes down below in the description on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So, I'm saying no trade. No deal. Deal or no deal? No deal. That includes Zion Williamson, who, look, I just don't feel should be part of the future of this team. Playing kind of better, coming off the bench, but that's not what he's going to do long term, at least not on this contract, right? He's going to eventually get back into the starting lineup. But they don't need to, and if you don't want that because you want to build around Derik Queen, Jeremiah Fears, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, it makes sense to try and move Zion. But I don't think you need to do that right now. The main reason you would trade him right now is not because you think you're going to get value back for him. You're not. His value around the league is not particularly high. If anything, him playing well off the bench and in limited minutes is probably hurting his value around the league because no one's going to pay $42.5 million to him next year for this kind of role. The Pelicans certainly aren't. You start him, you try and play him 33, 36 minutes if possible, but coming off the bench, even if he's better suited to that, and I don't know if he is or not, is certainly like that ain't it is the best way to put it, right? Like that ain't it. So that's going to hurt his value if that ends up being what the best version of Zion Williamson is. The main reason, so you're not going to get max value from him. And on him, you want to try and get as much as possible because it's already pretty low. The main reason you trade Zion Williamson right now is you're worried about him having his contract guaranteed for next season. He has maybe the most unique contract in the NBA currently. Right now, his contract is unguaranteed next year. And so I know a lot of people hear like 20%, 40%. His contract gets up in guarantees the more he plays, essentially. There are some misnomers around this, right? An unguaranteed deal in the NBA means you can just cut someone and you don't pay them any money after you waive them. Zion Williamson's contract does not work where if he misses a bunch of games, he gets less money next year. If he plays if he is on the team, even if he doesn't play games, he's going to get all $42.2 million next season. Sorry, $41.5 million. That's what it is. $41.5 million next year. If he's on the team, even if he doesn't play a minute, as long as he's not waived, he gets all of that. The way that the guaranteed stuff works is it just gives you an out to waive him. By July 15th is the key date basically every season for them to waive him and get out of some of the money. And the way his contract works is this. 40% gets guaranteed next season if he plays 41 games. Another 20% is guaranteed if he plays in 51 games. And another 20% is guaranteed if he plays in 61 games. So if he plays 61 games, 80% of his contract's guaranteed, so that if you waive him by July 15th, you have to pay him 80% of next season's money. So you obviously wouldn't do that. Another 20% is when Zion Williamson satisfies the weigh-in criteria, which is body fat and weight combined to be below 295. And I think there are 7 such dates during the year where he needs to hit that. That's how he gets his contract 100% guaranteed, and he's going to get that money whether he plays or not. Right now, Zion Williamson's deal next season is unguaranteed because of how many games he missed last year, playing just 30 games. Right now, he's only played, I believe, in 15 games so far this year. If the Pelicans want to waive him and he keeps playing, that money is going to start going up that's guaranteed, and basically it stops you from being able to waive him and getting out from his contract completely. That's the only thing that this really impacts, is if they were to waive him. It's not if he plays only, say he plays 51 games and hits the weight thing. It's not that he gets 80% of his money next season. It's just he's for sure going to get 80%, but he's likely going to get all of it. The only reason you trade him is if you're worried he's going to play in 41 games and all of a sudden now and meet the weighing criteria and 60% of his contract's guaranteed, so you can't waive him and get rid of him if you wanted to do that. That's the main reason I see for trading him right now, is let someone else take on that kind of risk. But if you want to waive him completely, you're going to need to find a way to not play him. And we're not hoping for injuries here. So that's going to kind of become the challenge here. In the offseason, you can figure it out more. Even if his contract's guaranteed in some capacity, you can figure it out more and just deal with it then. And there might be more teams willing to take on a Zion Williamson risk and up offers and thus give you better value. But I think right now, the way it's kind of looking, I would not move him. I just want to see the way the rest of the season plays out, including minutes between Zion Williamson and Derik Queen. It's been mixed. It's been very mixed. Looks good one game, doesn't look good another one. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out over the course of the season. I want to know so that this team can make the best determination possible about what to do going forward, and we just don't have that information as of today. I'm very much monitoring those Derik Queen and Zion Williamson minutes, and if, one, they pass the eye test or not, and also if the stats back it up. It probably went down after that Cavaliers game because they did not play well together. Did big time. They were at 1.8 net rating. They're now negative 0.5. Swings wildly game to game. Don't worry about that too much. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody here. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be back with y'all tomorrow.